Hey gang, it's your boy Platt, back with another episode of Value Spirits. Today I have a behemoth of bottom shelf whiskey. That's 10 High. Purchased this bottle at $9.99 and it comes in at 80 proof. So $10 for 80 proof of any kind of spirit. We're already kind of coming out ahead on the value proposition. Real quick, let's read that label. 10 High, America's native spirit, sour mash in big letters there. On the side, it says established in 1879 and recessed sour mash. They're pushing the sour mash. We'll get into the 1879 in a little bit. Down on the bottom, though, is where we kind of get some details. Bourbon whiskey with natural flavors. Now, we know that if it's going to be called bourbon, or if they're going to sell it as a bourbon, there's certain rules, and one of them is there's no additives, no flavoring or coloring or anything. So they're not technically calling this a bourbon. It's a bourbon whiskey with natural flavors. It comes in at 40 proof. On the side here, we see it's bottled by Barton Distilling Company, Louisville, Kentucky. And on the bottom, it says Sazerac.com. This is a Sazerac product. All right, let's jump into a little background on 10 High. 10 High was introduced by Hiram Walker in the 1930s after Prohibition. So it was not established in 1879. We'll get to that though. It came out after Prohibition. It was them basically wanted to get back into the American whiskey business since they pumped out so much Canadian whiskey during Prohibition. 10 High was originally produced in Peoria, Illinois. I did not know until researching this, but at one time there was a bourbon industry in Illinois, and 10 High was kind of the leading brand of that. They produced 10 High in Peoria all the way up to 1973 when they stopped production, and in 1981 they eventually closed the distillery. So, and pretty much after that, the quote-unquote bourbon business in Illinois had gone away. Production shift to Heaven Hill for a few years and eventually made its way to Barton, where it is at today. Now, the 1879 on the label refers to Barton's founding. That was when Barton Brands was founded in 1879. So it had nothing to do necessarily with 10 High, but with Barton's finding. Now, move ahead a few years, and in 2009, Sazerac purchased Barton. So Barton Brands are part of now Sazerac's portfolio. If you would have had a bottle of 10 High from, let's say, the 80s or 90s, you would have noticed on the label that it referred to itself, or it labeled itself as a straight bourbon whiskey. It was a bourbon back in the day. In 2009, when Sazerac purchased a brand, they started labeling it bourbon, a blend. It became a blended whiskey. What we have here is 51% bourbon and then other neutral spirits, i.e. vodka. It's think of it as similar to Seagram's VO or Seagram 7. I did a video on earlier, and that is 25% whiskey and then 70% neutral spirits with colors and flavors added. This is a little closer to a traditional bourbon. It's mainly bourbon with some other neutral spirits. They don't add any coloring. The color we get in the bottle is from the barrels. But this may be some young stuff, and so they may add some flavoring to help with the flavor. Now, the term 10 High, what does 10 High mean? Where's that name come from? It references a position in the rick house. If you've ever been to a distillery, if you ever get a chance, go to the great bourbon distilleries in Kentucky and go to their rick houses where they keep the barrels. The smell is unbelievable. It'll bring a tear to your eye. And anyway, 10 High refers to 10 High, and that the higher barrels in these rick houses usually age faster, mature faster. Now, that has nothing to do with the actual process they use. They don't guarantee that they just take top shelf barrels, but that's where that term comes from, is 10 High. Real quick, one last little aspect I do want to get into is the sour mash part. Many of you may know the process, but others may not. The term sour mash, what that refers to is in the process of making bourbon. Think about a big distillery, Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, what have you. You're always making batches, fresh batches, which means you're always got the spent grains from the previous batch. You take a little bit of that and put it into the grains for the next batch that you're about to cook or brew. You basically make a brewer's beer before, or what they call a distiller's beer before distillation. We'll take some of that spent grain and put it into the next batch. What this does is help with the pH in the brewing process, just makes it more efficient, makes fermentation a little more efficient. Also, too, it brings the consistency through the process. You know, each batch has got a little bit of that batch before, and you have kind of a consistency throughout all the batches. And that helps with that. It was always kind of deemed as a mark of quality. So again, they're still making a functional, they still make a bourbon with a sour mash, you know, technique. So there is some quote unquote quality. This is not, again, like a Seagram's 7 that you're just taking some whiskey and throwing some vodka in and coloring it up. But that's what the 10 high refers to. That's what the sour mash refers to. So with that being said, let's jump in and give some 10 high a try. All right, we got a decent amount of color. Again, on the label anyway, they're saying there's not coloring adding. So this is barrel color we're getting here. Let's go on the nose. Pretty simple nose. Maybe just a slight hint of vanilla, but not. And then the rest is alcohol, even though it's 40 proof, so it's not real high proof. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. That's real simple. I'm not going to lie to you. That's real simple. You know, 80 proof, you get the warming in the chest. There's not a lot there. It's a short finish. You get a little sweetness at the front of the tongue. Again, since this is at least 51% bourbon, we know bourbon's predominantly corn. Corn tends to give you that sweet punch up front. You get a little bit of that. I get a little tingling on the side. Not a lot of back. Yeah, there is not much to this. That being said, $9.99, 80 proof. This is a mixer. You're not going to sip it like this or drink it on the rocks. This is to go with cola or whatever kind of party punch. If you want to do like a bourbon watermelon thing, this is fine for that. This is for, in all honesty, this is for the college party. This is for just mixing, with mixers, just cola or ginger ale, what have you. Again, not the greatest product. There's not a lot of complexity to it. It's very simple. $9.99 is all I really have to say about that. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or spirits you'd like me to try, please leave me in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Well, until next time, bottoms up.